Hey everyone, and welcome. Get ready to dig deep into early human history, because today's deep dive is going to turn some heads, I think.
Definitely.
We're talking about how humans spread across the globe. Seems like a simple question, right? But the answer, well, it's way more complex than you might think. We're diving into cutting-edge research, scientific articles, the works, to uncover a story that's seriously intertwined.
Yeah, for ages we held on to this out of Africa theory, right? Seemed cut and dry. Homo sapiens evolved in Africa, then basically hop across the world, replacing other hominins like, the Neanderthals. But recent genetic evidence, it's flipping that script in some seriously cool ways.
Okay, so spill the beans. What are we talking about here? What's the scoop on our ancient fam?
Picture this. Homo sapiens, they didn't just replace those other hominins, we interbred with them. And not just a little bit, like a lot. Over a long time. This wasn't just a quick encounter. We're talking full-on family reunion with Neanderthals, Denisovans, even this mysterious unknown hominin we found traces of down in Africa.
Whoa, hold up. So you're telling me those prehistoric humans, they weren't just some distant relatives on the family tree. We were actually, mixing genes with them.
You got it. And each group, Neanderthals hanging out in Europe and the Middle East, Denisovans leaving their genetic mark from Siberia down to Southeast Asia, they each brought something unique to the table, genetically speaking.
So it wasn't a case of one group being better and wiping out the rest. That kind of throws a wrench in those old survival of the fittest ideas, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And this isn't just some interesting tidbit. It really challenges those ingrained assumptions we have about human nature. Makes you think maybe we're hardwired for connection, complexity, not just dominance through conflict.
Mind blown. So how do researchers even piece together these ancient meet-cutes? We're talking events from tens of thousands of years ago.
That's where the magic of genetic analysis comes in. It's like our very own time machine, letting us trace back those interbreeding events. Take Thorin, for example.
Thorin? Like the dwarf king from The Hobbit.
Exactly. Okay, not a dwarf king, but a remarkably well-preserved Neanderthal skeleton found over in France, lived about 100,000 years ago, and his DNA tells a fascinating story.
Okay, what's so special about Thorin's DNA?
Turns out Thorin was part of a Neanderthal population that stayed genetically isolated for a very long time, even though other Neanderthals living nearby were interbreeding with Homo sapiens.
Wow, so it's like, nope, we're good here for Thorin's group. But other Neanderthals were a bit more, shall we say, open to relations. Sounds like there were preferences at play, maybe even cultural factors influencing these interactions.
That's exactly what the evidence suggests. These weren't just random hookups. They were patterns, choices being made. And those choices, well, they've left a lasting legacy on our species.
So we've got interbreeding, not just replacement, pretty wild stuff. But if all this was happening, leaving its mark on our DNA, it makes you wonder, what happened to those other human groups? Why are we the only hominins still kicking around?
It's a question that's puzzled anthropologists for, well, pretty much ever. And the answer, like most things in science, it's not so simple. Probably comes down to a whole bunch of factors, vulnerability being a big one. Remember our pal Thorin and his isolated Neanderthal lineage?
Yeah, the holdouts of the Neanderthal world.
Right. And that isolation, it highlights something important. Smaller, less connected populations, they're just more vulnerable.
Less genetic diversity to help them adapt to environmental pressures, maybe.
Exactly. It's like having a limited toolbox. New challenge comes along, disease, climate change, even just competing for resources. Having a variety of genetic tools can be the difference between adapting and, well, disappearing.
So not that Neanderthal or Denisovans were weaker, necessarily, just dealt a tougher hand in the card game of evolution.
Oh, kind of, yeah. Evidence actually suggests Neanderthal populations were already pretty small, fragmented, even before Homo sapiens showed up. Add in those crazy climate swings of the late Pleistocene, big game, disappearing mammoths and the like, and then boom, new competitor arrives. Talk about a perfect storm of challenges.
And while it's easy to imagine these big dramatic clashes, sounds like the reality was probably way more, well, nuanced.
For sure. While we can't rule out some conflict, focusing on just us versus them misses the bigger picture. I mean, we carry Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA, right? Points to a much more complex tapestry of interactions, probably periods of cooperation, periods of competition, all woven together.
It's a good reminder that human history, even tens of thousands of years ago, wasn't just a straight line. Messy, interconnected, and full of surprises.
And that messiness, those surprising connections, they're not just ancient history. They're right here in our genes.
Okay, let's talk about those genes. What does it even mean carrying a bit of Neanderthal or Denisovan DNA? Is it just some fun fact for a dinner party, or are there real implications?
Oh, it's way more than a fun fact. Turns out, those genetic echoes, they can have real effects, even today.
No way, really. Give me an example.
Well, research suggests some genes we got from Neanderthals, they might actually be involved in our immune response.
So, like, we might have Neanderthals to thank for a stronger immune system? That's wild.
Could be. Makes sense, though, when you think about it. Neanderthals, they'd been adapting to environments outside of Africa for, like, forever compared to us. So by interbreeding with them, Homo sapiens, we basically picked up a genetic toolkit already honed for survival in those places.
Like inheriting a map from someone who's already explored the terrain. Love it.
Exactly. And it's not just about immunity either. Research suggests Neanderthal and Denisovan genes, they could be influencing all kinds of things. Hair and skin pigmentation, sleep patterns, even our likelihood of getting certain diseases. It's complex.
Wow, that's amazing. So in a way, these discoveries, they're making us rethink what it means to be human, right? Letting go of those old ideas about pure ancestry and embracing this, like, this beautiful tapestry of interconnectedness.
Exactly. Our history is way more intertwined than we often realize. And understanding that, well, it's not just some academic exercise. It has big implications for how we see ourselves, our place in the world.
It really makes you think about diversity differently, right? Not just in terms of like way back when, but in the world today.
Absolutely. Recognizing how intermingled our past really was. I mean, it challenges us to confront those prejudices that are based on us versus them. The research shows those lines were always way blurrier than we thought.
It's like we're all walking around with a little piece of those ancient stories inside us. Neanderthals, Denisovans, even those ancestors we haven't even discovered yet, all part of what makes us us.
Right. And recognizing that shared heritage, that connection, it can really change your perspective, you know? Makes you more empathetic, more understanding of the human tapestry in all its forms.
Definitely puts a new spin on that, saying we're all more alike than different.
For sure. This isn't just some dusty old history. It's about what it means to be human, to be part of this continuous, complex story of evolution.
So where does that leave us?
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways you hope listeners will, like, really chew on after this deep dive is done?
I think the big one is remembering that tangled shrub of human evolution. Next time you hear those ideas about pure ancestry or inherent differences between groups, think back to what we talked about, our history. It's messy, full of surprises, unexpected connections, and that's not something to shy away from, it's something to celebrate.
It's a good reminder that we're all part of this grand experiment of being human, shaped by forces ancient and modern. Well, I got to say, this deep dive has been amazing. I feel like I learned so much about our ancient relatives, about how complex human migration was, and how those events are still playing out, even in our DNA today.
And we've only scratched the surface. New discoveries are happening all the time, making our understanding of the human story even richer.
Makes you wonder, what will we uncover next, right? What other secrets are hiding in our genes just waiting to be found? If this deep dive piqued your curiosity, definitely check out the source material for this episode. It's incredible. You'll definitely want to keep exploring the world of early human history. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.